Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 5. I think it's the final part for today, for Monday, April 29th, 2013. I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and on YouTube it's ddarko2012, ddarko2013. Those are my YouTube channels. Again, I mentioned in the last video, there won't be any videos until May 9th because I won't have internet for that time. So, middle school girls forced to ask classmates for a lesbian kiss during anti-bullying presentations. They were instructed to ask one another for a lesbian kiss in a class. They had no choice, and the parents were not informed. But it says here, but hey, if it falls under anti-bullying, then who are you to question it? So this is what we talked about last time, along with crazed substitute teacher beats student and masturbates in front of them. And then we left off with this. Middle school mom censored pornographic Anne Frank. And they did that in school, in middle school. When I was younger, they tried to push that Diary of Anne Frank book, along with having a Holocaust survivor come to the school and tell us how crappy we should feel. It says here, DC abortionists on live action. I really consider them terrorists. It says a late-term abortionist at the center of new live action expose has said that he has not watched their undercover video because I do not like to feed into these people. I really consider them terrorists. His reaction, several comments recorded during live action's unedited footage show abortionists are hostile to and concerned about the political advocacy of the pro-life movement. So it says here, live action film, Dr. Cesar Santagello, a Washington surgery clinic, saying if a baby were born alive during a botched abortion, we would not help it. Says here, for Dr. Santagello to call a 24-week pregnant woman a terrorist after having just admitted he would leave struggling babies to die after surviving abortion is a desperate attempt to distract from his own horrific actions, responded Lila Rose, the president and founder of Live Action. This article that we covered from April 10th, DHS suggests Christians constitutionalists should get extra surveillance from LEOs. Big government progressives and collectivists love labels. They seem to come up with new ones almost daily, and they seek to isolate and demonize one small segment of the population at a time that they can identify as extremists, then dismiss from any discussion about the country's direction. DHS and the military have in reports published over this last couple of years, they equated a large segment of the U.S. population with terrorists for simply expressing displeasure over the nation's course. DHS and the Obama regime are aiding this endeavor by government propaganda armed mainstream media, who is owned by who? Zionists, I don't know. Organizations like the Southern Preposterous Lies Center, a.k.a. Southern Poverty Law Center, that is run by who? Well, you go and guess it. Says, now it's true the DHS is becoming exceedingly fearful of Christians who believe the Bible is God's word, Christian fundamentalists, whatever those are. Americans who believe the country is founded on godly principles, and those who believe the Constitution stands at the law of the land. They've lumped Christians and constitutionalists with a group it calls Sovereign Citizens Movement and identified them as requiring special surveillance by law enforcement. Undercover video shows abortion worker tells women to flush baby down the toilet. Goes on and says a new undercover video from a New York abortion clinic shows a counselor at a clinic describing what would be done with a baby who survives an abortion attempt. First, says the video is the first of a new series of undercover videos by the pro-life organization Live Action that are intended to expose the illegal practices of some late-term abortion clinics, as well as details of what happens to victims of late-term abortion. So it goes on here and says, the clinic says, you're done. Once you start this today, that's it. You're going to see it. We're not going to show you your sonogram pictures. We're not going to, She was telling someone that was 22, 23 weeks pregnant, after she goes home after the first stage of the abortion, that she should try not to push. Some patients will sit in the bathroom and try to push. Don't do that, says the counselor. The undercover investigator then asks what to do if the baby comes out while she's at home. If it comes out, then it comes out. Flush it. If anything, put it in a bag or something or somewhere or bring it to us. One person shot in Ohio high school shooting. It says here that one person has been shot in an apparent suicide attempt at a high school in Cincinnati. A student produced a gun inside one of the classrooms and shot himself, and we're dealing with that now, says a local official. It says the youth apparently was trying to commit suicide, but did not provide further details concerning the incident. He was later transported to University Hospital. The students at the all-male private school were put on lockdown. Chicken plans to douse birds with more chemicals because the USDA is set to increase conveyor belt speeds. The Washington Post has a lengthy appetite killing story about new rules set to go in place as at U.S. poultry plants that are likely to result in an increase in chemicals used to treat birds. The USDA is expected to allow plants processing lines to move even faster later this year from 140 birds per minute to 175 birds per minute for chickens. It says 45 to 55 per minute for turkeys. That means birds will be whizzing by so fast that workers won't be able to visually spot signs of contamination. The solution? Don't remove any birds from the line, just douse them with more bacteria-killing chemicals throughout the process. Mad cow infected blood to kill 1,000. Up to 1,000 people could die of the human form of mad cow disease through infected blood given to them in British hospitals, says the minister. They believe that there's still a risk of people contracting the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease through blood transfusions, as about 30,000 Britons are likely to be carrying the brain-wasting illness in a dormant form. Superbugs invade American supermarkets. The antibiotic-resistant bacteria are now common in the meat aisles of American supermarkets. I covered this before, but if not, these so-called superbugs can trigger foodborne illnesses and infections that are hard to treat. Then a little-known test, a joint project of the FDA, CDC, and that they found that supermarket meat samples collected in 2011 harbored significant amounts of superbug versions of Salmonella, which together caused 3.6 million cases of food poisoning each year. 53% of raw chicken samples tainted with antibiotic-resistant E. coli. It says, not surprisingly, superbugs spawned by antibiotic misuse and now pervasive in the meat Americans buy have become a direct source of foodborne illnesses. At 81% turkey, 69% pork chops, 55% ground beef. Since Russia banned imports of U.S. pork, chicken, and beef in February due to the use of Ractopamine, U.S. meat shipments to Russia have fallen to almost nothing. It says here the Russian ban on Ractopamine boosts Brazilian exports. So it says that much to the chagrin of Australian beef producers, however, Brazil, logging almost 10,000 tons a month of additional beef exports to Russia, is the big winner in filling the void left by the United States. From April 15th of this year, Russia meat imports, Canada sees 42 of 60 meat plants banned. Russia says it plans to send inspectors to Canadian cattle and hog plants beginning next month after recently unveiled stricter rules on meat imports. Russia only set meat imports from 19 Canadian plants compared to about 60 that were approved prior to new guidelines. EU attacks unjustified Russian ban on German meat imports from February of 2013. Russia says banned for safety reasons, but is not specific. So it's not related to the European horse meat scandal, they say. Russia's ban on imports of chilled German meat is unjustified and disproportionate and must be reversed immediately, says the European Union, right? So it says here that this is part of the WTO, right? Back to Corexit, the countless golf residents with symptoms resembling something from a sci-fi horror film. They have bleeding from the nose, ears, breasts, anus. Others complain of cognitive damage. So this is after BP's Deepwater Horizon was leaked millions of gallons of Louisiana crude into the Gulf of Mexico. The government allowed the company to apply chemical dispersants to the blossoming oil slick to prevent toxic gunk from reaching fragile bays and beaches. But a number of recent studies show that BP and the feds may have made a huge mistake, right? Yeah, right. For which everything from microscopic organisms to bottlenose dolphins are now paying the highest price. Go in there and check it out. And the last article I have for you is sharp bee population decline forces EU to consider ban on pesticides. A key committee of EU experts was meeting on Monday to mull a 2-year ban on pesticides blamed for a sharp and worrying decline in bee population. EU sources have told AFP that a decision to suspend the certain pesticides is likely to follow the closed-door talks between experts of 27 member nations. So, says here that battle lines have sharpened between environmentalists defending the bees and farmers and pharmaceutical firms. That's interesting. Farmers and pharmaceutical firms opposed to the ban, kind of like Big Agri, right? It's funny, I saw this sign driving on the expressway the other day and said, what? It's like a little sign saying, I'm a farmer, my name's Kelly, and farmers love the land. It's like, no you don't. You've killed the land. You know, you've contaminated the water supplies, the water tables, all the runoff from what you're doing. So no, you don't love the land. You've just been basically been best buddies with DuPont and post-World War chemical conglomerates. You know? So, they sold out. In order to compete with machines, there's a lot of farmers and hands and stuff like that don't have work. So, a lot of these farmers, they got a lot of, they have a lot of stress and everything, but at the same time, in trying to compete and all that and produce more and more and more, they've actually screwed themselves over. Especially with the machines and now, because they're all going to become obsolete. I mean, there's just landowners right now, like lords of the land, and some of these guys, these farmers, are like millionaires. And they've polluted the land immensely in the water supply. That's the big thing, the water supply too, in order to become millionaires, and then of course to sell out instead of giving it to their children. But most of their young offspring probably don't even want to do it. But doesn't really matter about the next generations of being able to take care of, the next generations are be able to take care of themselves and their future generations. It's about selling out now. Talking about the EU, they're not going to do shit, right? I mean, France did a study. They showed tumors in mice. They showed what genetically modified food does. And what do? I wouldn't have any kind of faith or trust in the EPA, the CDC, the EU, or any of these inspectors. I don't have any faith in the court system. Like I was saying, it's what is the point of checks and balances if you have the you have the executive branch, Obama, who basically was elected by Monsanto. He was elected by Goldman Sachs. He was elected by Lockheed Martin. That's who he was elected by. You have the legislative branch. All these people have been lobbied. All these people have been put there because they have some kind of dirt on them. So once they don't do what these corporations want them to do, then they get their card pulled. So again, no checks and balances. That's the executive and legislative branch both work for the same corporations. Then the judicial branch, they work for the corporations as well. Monsanto can never get in trouble. Nobody can sue them. They have protection now by this court system. So, I kind of laugh at the idea of checks and balances. Oh, yeah, this is a great system, the greatest system. There's a growing number of people, most of my viewers know, this country is a corporation. The public. What is the public? Is the public people? The city of Chicago? Is that the people of Chicago? No, that's the city of Chicago enforcing their political will on individuals that they call citizens. See, a citizen makes you feel like you have some kind of duty, some kind of a role, but you don't. Your role is to take the force that's put on you. The public. The public is just it's the state. Private corporations, what are they? Well, they're granted corporation status by the state, so they're actually part of the state. It just goes back and forth. And, does the people own the state? No, it's not the people's state. It's the corporations. It's the internationals. So so you could kind of see where I'm going with this. Something will change, hopefully. I'm pessimistic about the near future, but I'm optimistic about the long-term future. Maybe 100 years after I'm dead, 500 years, maybe 1,000 years it'll take until something gets better. Until, eventually the eugenics just turn us into these blobs where, they can't say, oh, we're evolving, we're getting smaller and bigger and living longer. Well, we're obviously gonna, we're not. You can see that now from all the eugenics. Maybe all the social engineering didn't work out so well. Maybe the geoengineering, maybe that didn't work out so well. Maybe the revolution, it didn't work. Restoring the republic didn't work. Voting, it didn't work. Down in South America, they say, well, they keep calling us leftists and communists. It's like we're anti-imperialist. And every country or every people should have their own little unique system for them. You shouldn't have other people exporting their will or their system onto them. Spain's the best example. They had a, quote, anarcho-communist system. I thought, in Greece in post-World War, Greece and all of them started to have social democracies, not representative democracies where you represented. Every individual had a stake in their work when they worked for somebody. They had an individual stake. Everybody profited. Everybody had an invested interest. We're talking about private property and personal property. Private property is some dude, CEO or whatever, getting a bunch of other people to work for him and do all the work for him. They have no ownership over anything, and they can be dispelled and dismissed. at will. Thank you.